creatures are known as Hormagaunts, captured on film by reporter Beatrice shortly before her retirement. My hat is sideways intentionally. I am aware and don't want to correct it. This is definitely a personal choice and not an animation error that I haven't been able to fix. But what do these new models mean for Genestealer Cult players, and what even are the new models? What does their presence mean for the game of Warhammer 40,000? The Hormagaunts, they look to be on 25mm bases still, so judging from the poses, I think they're still going to fall over. They definitely look 25mm when compared to the adjacent Ripper Swarms, which we know to be on 40mm bases. The models sort of balanced if you had them in the middle of the base and had their long tails balancing out the front of them. Now we've got ones that are going very vertical, we've got ones that are still kind of horizontal, and an absurd amount of tactical rocks. I have opinions on tactical rocks. They're in a separate video though. They're definitely looking very spiky, and we already know their datasheet, though that could be revamped for the codex. It's unlikely to be because they're all still armed with their scything talons, and it's only going to be a couple of months from the launch of 10th edition to when we get the Tyranid Codex, so I don't think there's any reason to change this particular unit. These Biovores, also new, don't look very Tyranid to me. They look like a sci-fi creature from another IP. They're spider-like but missing 2 of the spider legs, and they're much bigger, and having 6 legs instead of 2 or 4 makes it seem to me like they're from Starship Troopers instead of being another Tyranid model, though we know how much Games Workshop copies other IP while being protective of their own abducted ideas. Yes, these are different. I think it lacks the fists, the big monkey fists at the front, and it lacks the hooves that make it look like a Tyranid. This one looks a lot closer to the Chaos Venom Crawler than a Tyranid model. It even has the same like one random foot on a tactical rock at the back, and I'm not a fan of the spider mouth. I encourage praise of the model in the comments if you so wish, but I'm not a fan. I'm not seeing quite enough of a distinctive look between the Biovore and the Pyrovove to be able to easily tell them apart. I suppose if you painted them a bit differently, then it looks okay. The shape at the back of the chitin is a little different, and the barrel of the Pyrovove has a tiny bayonet spike, which, you're not stabbing people with that. It's not going to have the range. You need to be much bigger and much spikier to do combat. And we have that now. The Tyranids have their long-rumoured knight-sized monster. And the bit I like that seems to have escaped a lot of people's notice is the cool change on the base. 2 different monsters, 2 different bases. And it kind of fits. I quite like the Norn Emissary. And there is this other version that is very similar. But Norn Emissary, I quite like. Multiple brains. If you were wondering why Games Workshop does this, having 2 different units come from the same kit, shelf space. They want to sell models and they make units that need models, but then they have to have the warehouse space for online orders and space in the shop on the shelves. Having 2 units built on 1 kit lets them do that. It's nice to see these big monsters, and look forward to a return of older models like the Norn Queen itself or the Dominatrix. I don't know why Games Workshop doesn't sell that anymore. Mammy, Daddy took me to a strange shop with pictures of part-naked ladies in corsets with crab claws. Yes, and then he pre-ordered a Dominatrix. Daddy is going to get a Dominatrix. Termagaunts have their 2nd edition weapons back. The whole Tyranid range for this edition is very reminiscent of the 2nd edition, which is nice to see. I've been playing since 2nd edition, and it's good to see it back. 2nd edition had bright and colourful, funny lore, before 3rd edition ramped up the Grimdark to 1,000. Well, to 40,000. The drawbacks though. If you have got the Leviathan box, and points stay as they are, where special weapons cost no extra points, then you're getting a worse unit for the same points if you have the new Leviathan box. That is because the Leviathan box just comes with flesh borers. These new Termagant models can have their spine fists, flesh borers, devourers, and also spike rifles, strangle webs, and shard launchers, which are probably going to be better than a flesh borer or spine fist. If you hadn't realised, I'm cosplaying as an Imperial Guard officer. that does like training videos. That's what that bit was about. Didn't know if I have to explain it. Don't know if the floppy hat is distracting or distracting enough. Now that I've distracted you, surprise, there's a Lictor. The Lictors are very, very tall for stealthy models. I would have really liked to see them crawling along the floor on like a cavalry-shaped base. Then they would actually look very easily visually different to the Ryans. There is also a new Lictor version with an exposed brain, because if you can't point at your own head to show that you're using psychic powers, then you have to have an exposed brain. We also learn, unsurprisingly, there will also be a Vanguard Assault detachment available in the Tyranid Codex to represent the early stages of a Tyranid invasion. This will give bonuses to Lictors, the Ryans, and Genestealers. Hopefully you could do a very nice little campaign with the Tyranids where you go through the stages of a successful Tyranid invasion, and each battle you use a different detachment. Very nice. What about us Genestealer Cult players? What does this all mean? Well, step 5 of the muster army rules say you select units that have the same faction keyword. So you can't have Tyranids in your competitive Genestealer Cult army, even though both factions have the Great Devourer keyword on their models, because the faction keyword here in the bottom right is different. If you play narrative games like Crusade, absolutely, do it. Get some Lictors in there. That would really work with a Genestealer Cult army. You just won't get the Shadow and the Warp ability because you have to choose an army faction and then you get that army faction rule. But these new Genestealers, they are probably the only new models that we as Genestealer Cult players can expect for a while. Our current box is about 18 years old, if I'm right, and came with 8 Genestealers, when the current points allow you to field them in squads of 5 or 10. But I did expect something like this to happen, where there's a new box released, so I didn't make a big thing of it in the Index Errors videos. They look quite nice, they'll go well with the Patriarch, and I already have a video on how to use the new Genestealers and the Patriarch together, and that video is linked in the comments and the description. Oh yes, and there's also Deathleaper. Well, I have a video on Deathleaper and the Ryans already done for you to enjoy. It is even more dramatic than this video. My darlings and viewers, have a great day with your new Genestealer models in 40k.